So I was sitting on the lounge talking to my mum, and I suddenly had this excruciating pain in my chest, where I doubled over. I was holding my chest, and my mum started panicking because she said, what's wrong with you? And I said, I don't know. It's just, it was like someone had put a knife into my chest. It was a really big, large spiritual being came down the hallway, and I knew him, and he asked me to follow him. So as we were going down this hallway, I looked over to the side, and every single person I had ever met in this life that had died was there. I missed that love. I missed that feeling. And to me, Earth is a very dense energy, and it's a heavy energy that we have here. And that was just so beautiful. So for quite a while afterwards, I just felt sad that I had to come back here. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of gratitude when they come back, but I felt the opposite. I felt sad. I wanted to go back to the other side. Yes, my name is Vicky Button. I'm 61 years of age. I live in Australia, in the south part of Australia. I have 5 sons, and I have mainly most of my life been on a very spiritual journey. It's from being a teenager. I've always known I had clairvoyant ability, and it's always, no matter what path I've tried to follow, I keep getting pulled back to the spiritual path. So for the last 40 years, I've been doing readings for people using clairvoyant ability, and I do them all via email. So I don't need people to be in my home. I just need a photo. That's all I have. I just have a photo of somebody, and I read their energy. And that's mainly what I've been doing for the past 40 odd years. So I was 16 years old. I got my very first job, and I was working in a bank, and it was just before Easter, and I was going home, and I had to catch a bus to go home. And before I went home, I had this instinct to go and buy some flowers for my mum and a card, because Easter was coming up. So I went to this flower stand, and I bought this. There was one bunch. There was lots and lots of bunches of carnations and roses and the general colourful flowers. But there was this one little bunch all by itself of a brownie flower. And I instinctively thought, okay, that's really unusual. I'll buy those. So I bought those. And then I went to get a card for my mum. And normally I would buy something that was funny, humorous type card. But this particular time I bought a card that said, "May God be with you this Easter." So I've got the bus home, and I wrote on the card while I was sitting on the bus. And then I went into the house and I gave these to my mum. And she looked at the flowers and she said, "Wow, why did you buy those?" And I said, "I don't know. They just jumped out at me." And she said, "They are Baronias. They're your Nana's favourite flowers." And then she read the card, and, it was all lovely and everything. So I was sitting on the lounge talking to my mum, and I suddenly had this excruciating pain in my chest, where I doubled over. I was holding my chest, and my mum started panicking because she said, what's wrong with you? And I said, I don't know. It's just, it was like someone had put a knife into my chest. And all of a sudden, this overwhelming peace came over me, and the pain went away. And my mum said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm okay. It's gone. It's all good." My dad came home probably 10 minutes later, and he said, "Nana's just died of a heart attack." So I felt her physical pain. The moment of her heart attack, I felt her pain in my body. And from that moment on, there was something where I realized I could feel other people's pain. I could sort of understand what other people were going through. And that's what led me on to wanting to learn more. Well, how it led to me going into hospital was I had taken I had a headache, and normally I would take what we call like a Panadol tablet, and I didn't have any in the house. So I took an aspirin tablet. And I didn't know, but I am allergic to aspirin. People can have allergies to aspirin, or like they do with peanuts, or, you know, some kind of allergy, which caused me to go into anaphylaxis. And so I had this massive reaction where I stopped breathing. And I was at home, and one of my sons found me on the floor, and he called an ambulance. And I was taken to 2 different hospitals because they weren't sure. They didn't know that I'd taken something, so they weren't sure what was actually happening to me. So I was just not breathing, and so they had tubes going in and trying to keep my body breathing. So that's actually why I ended up in hospital. And then I left my body, and when I left my body, I didn't have the feeling that I was dead. It was just, I was out of my body. I knew my physical body was on the hospital bed, and my spiritual body I was next to a doctor. I never met this doctor before in my life. I had no idea who this doctor was, but my spirit self, my soul, knew everything about him. I knew that he was married. I knew he had children. I knew that why he wanted to be a doctor. It's kind of like I knew his whole entire life story without ever having met him. Then my soul moved to next to the nurse, and it's kind of like you're just floating. And I moved next to the nurse, and then I had the same thing. I knew everything about the nurse. I knew why she was a nurse. I knew all her whole entire life story, kind of like I just knew them. But in my physical self, I'd never met them before. And then I looked up, and I saw a spiritual being coming towards me. It was coming down a hallway. Now, some people say that they see a tunnel or a light. I didn't. I saw like a hallway, and I didn't see light. And it was a really big, large spiritual being came down the hallway, and I knew him, and he asked me to follow him. So as we were going down this hallway, I looked over to the side, and every single person I had ever met in this life that had died was there. But they're not, it's really strange because they're like light, and you don't have to give them names, but you know who they are. So I could see my mum had passed away, and I could see that my mum was there, and my friends that had passed away, I could see they were there. Even a school teacher that I had in primary school, she was there. Like everybody that had something to do with my life was there. And I wanted to go over to them, but this spirit that was with me said I wasn't allowed to go over there. Like I just had to follow him. So I followed him, and he took me into a room, and I have since called it the room of knowledge, because it felt like every person that is alive has a record there. And it's like a book, you know, with your life, I could pick a book off the shelf of your life, and I could know everything about your life and all the lessons that you've had to learn, and all the experiences that you've been through, and how they have molded you into who you are. That's contained in this record of every single existence ever. And I was in this room, and he gave me information which I was to use later on. So then I came back to where my body was, and I didn't go straight back into my body. I was floating above my body, and I could see 2 things. I could see the real doctors and the real nurses in the physical world working on my body, and just above, I could see spirits working on my spirit body. And the spirit people put 4 screens. There was a screen there, a screen there, a screen there, and a screen there, and they were putting color into my body. Now, you know the chakra points in your body? They were sending color into my chakra points to sort of realign me. And once they finished putting all the colors in, I heard this voice say, she can go back now. I went back into my body and I opened my eyes. And the first thing I said, this nurse was looking at me and she said, she called my name, and I looked at the nurse and I said, oh, did you see all the colors? And she said, no, I didn't see any colors. An incredible love. It's like being hugged with love. It's comforting, it's warm. It's just love. It's a pure love. I always say, like, when you give birth to a child, and the moment that your child is born, there's an incredible amount of love that you feel in that moment. But this feeling that you get on the other side is 2,000 times better than that. Well, for about 3 weeks after that experience, I felt very depressed because I missed that love. I missed that feeling. And to me, Earth is a very dense energy, and it's a heavy energy that we have here. And that was just so beautiful. So for quite a while afterwards, I just felt sad that I had to come back here. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of gratitude when they come back, but I felt the opposite. I felt sad. I wanted to go back to the other side. So that happened for about 3 weeks. And then over the last 3 years, I have these moments where I just recall what that spirit guide was teaching me in that room of knowledge, and things come up. And then I start asking questions, and then I will ask other people questions because I want to understand it more. I don't think I was meant to remember it all at the same time because it would be too overwhelming. And it tends to come when I'm laying in bed, you know, that in between dream state, awake state. I will get, the other day, one of the examples is I question why people have names for their guides, or so, you know, you were born with your name in this life, and in your previous life you had a different name, and in a previous life, in a past life, you've had a different name again. So if you've had many different lives, you've had many different names. So when your soul returns back to source energy, you've had many different names. So your soul doesn't have a name. That we only use names on Earth. On the other side, there is no need for names. To understand that your soul or our souls already has chosen what we need to learn. So whenever you go through an experience in life and it's really, really difficult, you think it's really, really difficult, and you're learning from it, you're allowing your soul to have the experience it wanted to have. Because my human self will in a difficult situation will say, I don't want this to happen. You know, I don't like what's happening to me. But my soul, my higher self, will say, but it's teaching you, it's giving you the experience you need. So it's a blessing to your soul. And while you're in it, you can't see that. While you're experiencing it, you can't see how this is helping you. When you come through it and you learn, then you understand what it was showing you. Each person should really, really trust in their own higher self, because what we will do when we're learning about spiritual things or we're going through something, we tend to want to listen to somebody else or watch somebody else's video or learn from an author or, you know, learn from a spiritual coach. And it's good to do that, but also to trust in your own higher self, because what you are going to believe and what I'm going to believe may be different, but that's still good. It's still good, but because each of us are on different levels.